And we're live. Hello, everyone. This hour on Verbling, the next in my Business and Basics series. Today, we're going to be doing a kickoff meeting. That is to say, the first meeting in a big project. We're going to take some of the things that we've learned in the last class, some key phrases, a little bit of grammar, and we're going to try to launch our own product. So more about that in just a minute. But first, let me just do a quick introduction, and we'll get started. I'm John Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. Nothing is working on my computer. Give me just a second. Can't do the introduction if I can't see anything on the screen. Give me just a second here. There we go. So, I'm John Eric, your Verbling teacher for this hour. I'm an American teacher from New York with nothing working on my screen. There we go. That's what I wanted to show you. And if you click that link in the Verbling chat window, it'll take you to my profile page where you can book a private class on the right. You can also follow me in my upcoming classes on the left side. You should get notifications of all my group classes. So that's a little bit about me. Let me just get the material for you on screen now, and we'll get started. I hope. Let's see if everything's working. Ah, look at that. There we go. So, in the last class, I'm going to jump forward to the middle of the class where we stopped off. In the last class, we started to look at some problems that can occur when you have a meeting, which is right here. I asked you to describe the problems in each of these 4 pictures, right? So we talked briefly, we talked about a logistical problem or even a communication problem where people might not show up or know what to do in a particular, know that a particular meeting is taking place. Sorry. I just lost the page again, sorry. See, today I'm trying to use Firefox because I'm having so many problems with Chrome, and it's not helping very much. There we go. So, as I was saying, in the first case, maybe there's a logistical problem. In the second case, perhaps the chairperson didn't control the meetings, what we talked about. In the third, on the bottom left side, perhaps a speaker isn't using effective communication skills. And on the bottom right side, the last picture, perhaps there's a technical problem, or basically one of the speakers wasn't really prepared, didn't practice beforehand, or something like that. These are all things that could come up, that could go wrong. We then listened to 2 meeting introductions. One was not successful, and one was successful. And when we listened to the successful one, I asked you to try to fill in the missing information in the key phrases on the right side. Okay? I might ask you to just review that. These are the 2 presentations. And this is a full meeting, the beginning of a full meeting that we listened to, we read through in the last class. So, there it ends there. So what I wanted to end with, and where we're going to begin, is I asked you, if you could, to look through the meeting on slide 13 and 14 for homework. And what I wanted you to do was to find examples of a pattern that we saw in the last class. The pattern is that what happens when there's 2 verbs in a sentence? I asked you to find, if you could, 1 or more examples of the following. A verb that follows another verb by using the to form, a verb that follows another verb by using the infinitive, or that it follows it using the base form, and see if we can sort of work out the different patterns, what they are. I don't know if anyone had a chance to do that. If you did, give me your answers. If not, let's read through it really quickly and see if we can find examples of those patterns, because you need to identify the verbs which lead to those patterns. Then we're going to try a little meeting of our own. So, Did any of you have a chance to take a look at this between Monday and today? Is that a yes or is that a no?
No, John.
No. Okay, let's read through it then. Let's read through this meeting to be familiar with it.
Just a question, please. I missed the last class on this topic. Do you think I will be able to understand it and work on it very well?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay.
The basic thing we did was just kind of look at important key phrases to run a meeting, and then that's basically what we did.
Okay.
So let's look at meeting 2. Okay. Let's read through it one time, and then I'm going to ask you to find a few different patterns, just to be aware of them. Okay. So Arnaud, why don't you read what the chairperson says in the beginning of meeting 2? It's a little hard to read. Sorry about the text, but do your best. Arnaud, are you there?
Yes.
Can you read what the chair says, the chairperson?
Okay. Right. Listen, everybody. Listen.
No, sorry, meeting 2. Meeting 2 on the right side.
Oh, okay. Right then, I think we should start. Now, as you all knows, we're here to discuss the main issues arising from the last department meetings. As you can see, there are 6 items on today's agenda. We only have this room until 3 o'clock, so let's try to stick to the agenda. Brad, could you start by telling us about the problems we've had with unauthorized access to our intranet and what you are thinking of doing to prevent this happening?
Okay, very good. That's the introduction to the meeting. What does the chairperson do? The chairperson is the one who's running the meeting. The chairperson gives a kind of an overview, right? We're going to go back and we're going to pick out some of those key phrases in the overview, just as a review, in just a second. In the next slide, we have a few excerpts from the meeting. So you can see the chair is, that's the part you just read at the top there. In the next section, we have Martin, Susan, and Paul. And then the section after that, we have Martin, the chair, Susan, and Paul. Okay, so let's do just a quick review. So, Rob, I'm going to ask you to read Martin. V, I'm going to ask you to read Susan. Giancarlo, I'm going to ask you to read Paul. And Arnaud, if the chair comes up again, you're going to take the part of the chair. Then I'll just make sure that everything's clear, and then we're going to go back and work on a little bit of vocabulary and a little bit of grammar, those patterns I was talking to you about. It's going to be really quick. I just want you to be aware of them. I don't want you don't have to memorize or do any exercises, just to be aware of the patterns. Take it away, Rob. Martin in the next section.
Okay. Is it oblivious that its problem is we need to ask staff?
You're not reading the words on the page. Slow down. Slow down.
Okay.
Obvious.
Obvious. What the problem is with...
Good.
Sorry?
I said good.
Okay. We
Good,
need to ask staff to bring stick notes every time they are absent.
Yeah.
It's a sample that will make people think twice before calling in sick.
Right. So this meeting is about internal problems in the company. Absences is an issue. Susan?
Yep.
Yeah. Paul, what do you think of his proposal to outsource the cleaning stuff? Paul?
Paul? Giancarlo, you're Paul? Giancarlo. Uh-oh, Giancarlo was sleeping.
Well,
there he is. Okay.
Well, we certainly can't afford to keep on the current number of staff, but I'd advise against outsourcing the cleaning completely. Maybe we could consider employing a small number of full-time cleaners and employing the remainder through an agency.
Okay. So this is the next part of the meeting. We're just hearing little bits and pieces of this meeting. If there's any questions about what's going on, ask away. Like, what is calling in sick? What is outsourcing? Okay, if there's any questions.
What does outsourcing mean?
Good question. What does outsourcing mean? If you outsource the cleaners, do the cleaners work for you or do they work for another company? That's the question you have to answer.
For another company, external workers.
Right. Outsourcing means to hire external people, right? So, V, why might the company want to outsource the cleaners? What might be the reason behind that, V?
Yeah, because of the number of staffs absent. So the method of hiring the employees from outside can prevent this situation.
Actually, no. The reason is because we're looking at different parts of the meeting. We're not looking at one continuous transcript of the meeting. So the absenteeism is an earlier issue, not related to the cleaning staff. Okay? But for the cleaning staff, maybe it would be just cheaper to hire external staff and just pay them when you need them, rather than have staff which need to be paid 12 months out of a year. It's not in the meeting, but we can sort of imagine the situation.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, because of the flow of workload. So
right.
Yeah. So when the workload is low, we can use our full-time staff, and when it reaches the peak, so we can get the employees, the outsourcing employee.
Yeah, exactly. And maybe with cleaning staff, there's just never enough workload to justify hiring them. Maybe there's just not a reason, because there just isn't enough to be cleaned. So that could be another reason. But yes, in general, if the workload exceeds the normal workload, then you can hire temporary extra workers you can outsource. Okay. In the next part of the meeting, we're going to have a slightly different issue. Mr. Martin, what do you say in the next part, the bottom of the page?
Can I just ask Paul if he remembered to ask his department to stop talking
Stop taking
their holidays all at the same time.
Okay, Paul?
Well, I tried telling them that it was...
Actually, I think we should move on to the next point now. Time is running short and we still have 2 more items to discuss.
Okay. In the last part of the meeting, we have the chair, Paul, and Susan. Mr. Chairman?
Does anyone have anything to add to that before we finish?
I don't think so.
No, I think that's about everything.
Okay, let's go over what we've agreed.
All right. So the last thing that we do in the meeting, Mr. Chairman, how do we end the meeting? That last line about let's go over, what does that mean? Let's go over everything we've agreed? Let's do what?
Let's continue. Let's
continue? Not exactly.
No.
What does go over mean? Doesn't mean continue. When the meeting ends, we're all going to separate. We might forget things that were important. So, the last thing we should do is what? Clear? To review.
Okay.
Double check.
So, yeah, not even double check, really review. So to go over means because it might have been a long meeting and we might forget. Okay? I don't know why that says review 7. That should say just review. Okay, so these are excerpts from different stages of a meeting, and the real goal was to look for certain patterns. First, I want to make sure let's do that afterwards. Okay, so what I want you to do in this slide or any of the other slides after, so this is 13, 14, and 15, is this. I want you to find one example of each of these. A verb followed by an infinitive, a verb followed by the base form of the next verb, that means the infinitive without the to, if you can find an example. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. A verb followed by the ing form of the next verb, and perhaps an example where you can use either the ing or the to. Maybe there's a verb that has the to in one part and the ing in the other. So in all these cases, you're looking for a pattern that is a sentence with two verbs, not one, and your choices are, I'll put this in the chat window, look, verb plus to, verb plus ing, verb plus the base form, that means no to, and finally verb plus either but both. Okay, let me put that in the chat window for you. Hopefully you can see that. Oh, maybe my chat window is not working. Is it working? Okay, I guess maybe I shouldn't be using Firefox. Ah, there we go. There's a delay, but it's there. Okay, and by the way, don't forget, you can open this presentation. You can open it directly by clicking on this link. Okay, so on slides 13, 14, and 15, or on this page directly if you see one, can you find an example of any of those four forms that we're looking for? Any examples so far?
Yes, there's some here. Try to do start by telling. Okay, thinking of doing, but you know, John, there is a preposition after the verb.
Good.
For example, start by.
Well, give me the sentence first, so I know which sentence you mean.
Could you start by telling us about the problems?
Okay. Okay, but let's take a look at that. So this is going to be on slide 13, right? Actually, you know what? Let me change the page because you can see this on the next page. Sorry. Okay, so slide 14. Slide 14. And it's could you telling us about the problem? Okay, very good. So if we're going to make a rule out of that, the rule would be what? After what, we use an ing. After
a preposition.
Yep. We use the gerund or the ing following a preposition. Okay? So that's okay. It's not one of the main patterns, but that's good to make a note of. Okay? Looking on the rest of the page, can you find any of those other examples? By the way, that is a good example because you're going to see it coming up many times. Go for it, V.
Yeah. The verb following by to semantic, I think. like afford. Paul, we certainly can't afford to keep. So the
Excellent.
first is afford. The second is remember. If you remember to ask.
Okay, good. So we've got can't afford to keep.
Yeah, can't afford to keep and remember to ask.
And remember to ask. Good.
Martin, yeah, Martin.
Remembered to ask. Very good. Now, I'll tell you right now that remember to ask and afford to keep follow different patterns. So that might give you a clue. What you're really trying to do here is you're trying to categorize the verbs so that you have a better idea what follows those verbs. Afford will always be followed by I can't afford. You can never say I can't afford to keep them on. I can't afford keeping them on. Oh, maybe you could. Hold on a second. I can't afford keeping them on at this rate. I can't afford to keep them on at this rate. You know what? I think that you might be able to use both after afford. It doesn't sound that bad to me. Interesting. Doesn't sound bad to me. I think that a dictionary or a grammar might say that it should be to rather than ing, but I could see a native speaker using both. But remembered is a different case entirely. So here we have remember to ask. Where is that in which paragraph is that? Remember to ask.
The last paragraph.
Last paragraph. Okay. Could I just ask Paul if he remembered to ask his department to stop taking their holidays? Good. What we've got to find out is there another version of remember? Because this follows a slightly different pattern. Maybe not. I don't see any others. Okay, so let me give you an example for this. We could say, let me find just a quick example. Where was it? Yeah. I wanted to ask if he remembered to ask, right? Could I just ask Paul if he remembered to ask the department? Okay, so that means did he do something? Remembered to? Did he remember something in the past? Did he remember to do something in the past? But what if I say, Paul, did you, no, I should say do you. Do you, sorry, remember asking? Do you remember asking, can I ask Paul if you remembered asking your department? Do you remember asking your department to stop, sorry, definitely having problems with Firefox. Maybe I'm not going to use this again. I'm having trouble writing and getting things in the chat window. Do you remember asking your department to stop taking holidays? Okay. If I reconstruct the sentence in this way, can you see the difference in meaning between those two statements?
Yeah.
What's the difference?
The first, remember to ask means the things it means you have to do something.
Right, you have an obligation.
Yeah,
maybe.
but the second, that you remember an action that you've already finished in the past.
There you go. Does he remember the action itself? Does he remember the action itself? And that's the one that's different than all the rest. Does he remember the action itself of asking? Does he remember that particular moment? So if it's to do something, that means you're remembering a responsibility. If it's remember asking, that means it's remembering a moment. So we might say that when remember is followed followed by 2, it implies a responsibility. Okay, and when ing an action. Okay, that's like the most difficult one of all. Sorry. Okay, and are there any other examples? So that's the difficult one I want you to notice. The rest of them are pretty easy. You can start to align the verbs into 2 categories, verbs that are followed by 2 and verbs that are followed by ing. Are there any examples of verbs followed by ing that don't have a preposition? Here on this page or on the next one?
The next one,
Okay.
stop taking, and no, this one, stop taking, and the next one is try telling. I think for try we have the same situation with remember that try to do something and try doing something.
Yeah, it's very similar. And the other one was stop what?
Stop taking the holiday, Martin. The same paragraph.
Right. Yeah. Stop taking holidays. So we would never say stop to take. If anyone can think of an example where you say stop to take, let me know, but I can't think of a single one. So what I want you to do is start to notice that there's 2 categories of verbs. Gerund verbs and infinitive verbs. Verbs that have to be followed by the gerund, verbs that have to be followed by the infinitive, and here you have a few examples. Also notice that particular words can use either, but the meaning changes, like the word remember and like the word try. That's really the purpose of that exercise. Okay, so I'm not going to go into much more detail. Are there any questions about those patterns? Any questions? No?
About what, John? Sorry?
Are there any questions about those 4 patterns?
No, but I don't understand correctly what the difference between to say stop taking or stop to take.
Stop to take doesn't exist.
Okay. Okay.
That's the difference. You can't say it. So you have to in your notes, you have ing. That's what I'm suggesting. And start looking for 2 verbs. You have to start to categorize the verbs into those 2 groups. Which verbs can be followed by ing, like stop taking holidays, and which verbs can be followed only by 2, right? Like stop to take doesn't work. But if I say, let me see, if I can give you some examples here. So some examples from the text that I found were, let's see. Okay, so remembered to ask, that would be a verb that could be followed by 2. What else?
We need 2.
We need to discuss this. Very good. So it's always a need to, always, never changes. There is a little exception in American English, but it's not really accepted. It's debatable whether there's an exception to that. Some people say need without the to in some cases. Basically, it doesn't exist. Always need to. Afford to. We can't afford to change. So afford to is 99% of the time going to be followed by a to. And it's arguable whether you can follow it with anything else. What about consider? Which is consider? Is that a to verb or an ing verb?
Ing.
Ing verb.
Ing. Could consider employing. Exactly. Could consider employing. What about We did try. What about start? What about the verb to start?
Both to and ing.
Okay. Let's think of an example with to start. Think about the context of a meeting. Think about an action. Let's see if we can create a quick sentence. If it's both, we should be able to create a sentence for both, right?
Okay.
So,
let's start to check the agenda.
Okay. Let's start to check the. Let's start to check. Now, what if I say, let's start checking the agenda? Both are possible, but the meaning is different. So this is just like try and remember. Let's start checking the agenda. Let's start to check the agenda. Do you know what the difference is?
Start to, as you said, yes, as you say, is start to is something that is mandatory. I mean, it's an action that we need to take. No?
Yeah, but let's not use the word action because it could be confusing. It's a responsibility.
It's a responsibility, yes.
And if we say, let's start to check the agenda, we're referring to the future, not the present. From now on, let's start to check the agenda. Well, actually, hang on a second. Maybe I'm giving you a bad example. Let me just double check. From now on, let's start checking the agenda before we begin the meeting. Let's start to check the agenda. Let's start checking. Let's start to check. My idea is this. Usually when we use the to, it has this idea of future attached to it. Let's start to check the agenda every meeting. Whereas if I say, let's start checking, I could be referring to right now. So that would be one difference, I suppose. Maybe that's, I don't know how confusing that is, but anyway. So the main point here is it can be followed by both, but with a slight difference in meaning, basically.
Yeah. So, John, because I usually use start following my verb in the case that I say I start learning something for a long time. So in that case, I usually use start plus verb. Like I start learning piano for some months. Yeah, something like that.
What was the question?
Probably thinking that way is more. Pardon? Sorry.
But what was the question there? Sorry.
No, I mean how to describe start, because in your cases, I think I feel confused. Start to do something, is that happening in the future? Start to do something.
How about this? I started to say the reason. I started to say the reason, but then I stopped. I started saying the reasons. So if we add a little context, it'll be clear. I started to say the reason why I was late, but the look on my boss's face told me to shut up. So I started to is to begin. I started saying the reasons. I got to think of another context. I started saying the reasons for the. That's a bad example. I started to say reasons for employee absenteeism every meeting until it sunk in, until everyone understood. So in the second case, I'm not beginning something. I started saying. Start does mean to begin, but we're focused on the action, and we can use it to say that it happens repeatedly. Whereas start to seems like it's the first time or the very beginning, and it's sort of an idea if it happens once. So that might be another example. So I think what we should do is to try to use them. That's the basic advice I can give you, is try to use them. And just notice the ones that we've seen so far. Some examples we saw were let's try to stick to the agenda. But if we have a preposition, let's start by telling telling the reasons for the absenteeism. Let's think of doing to prevent this from happening. So most of the cases you'll use a preposition to have the gerund. We need to ask staff to bring sick notes. It's always need to. People think, this might make people think twice. This is one example that we haven't looked at. Let me just quickly put it in the chat window. This will make people think twice about being absent. That's one of the rare examples. Occasionally, a verb can be followed by the base form of a verb. The base form equals the infinitive, but no to, without to. Okay? So in make people think twice, there is no to. It's not make people to think, it's make people think. And basically, make is the most common word. Make, have, get. Those are the common words where you use the base afterwards. Okay? So those are some, I mean, what I'm saying is, look at the examples in this dialogue, and basically, I'm not saying to memorize them, but just be very familiar with those because they're the most common. And I think that's the easiest way to know the difference. So try to stick, start by telling, think of doing, prevent this happening. That's another one where you've got the ing. Need to ask, make people think. Need to discuss, that's another need to. What else? Can't afford to keep, afford to. Advise against outsourcing. There's an adverb, which is like a preposition, so we have the ing. Could consider employing. After consider, we have ing. Remember to ask or remember asking. Stop taking holidays. Stop followed by ing. Tried telling. There, tried has the ing instead of the to. Okay? So be familiar with those patterns. Last thing, let's jump back here. Let's see if we can just review some of those key expressions. Okay, we did this before, but we're going to use these in the meeting that we're going to have in just a second. So let's make sure that they're all clear. Okay, the chairperson says, right then, I think, how does he begin the meeting, Arnaud? Right then, I think.
We should start.
We should start. We're going to use that expression again in just a minute. Rob, now, as all of you know, we're blank the main issues. This is still the chairperson talking. The chairperson is setting the agenda for the meeting here. What do you think, Rob? Fill in the blank with your own words if you're not sure, and I'll tell you if it sounds good.
Here to discuss the main issues.
That's exactly right. As you all know, we're here to discuss. That's it. Perfect. Okay, Giancarlo. As you can see, there are 6. Now here we're talking about the things we're going to discuss. There are 6.
As you can see, there are 6 items on today's agenda.
Perfect. V. Brad, could you blank about the problems? Chairman is calling on a person to
Could you tell about the problems?
Tell about?
Yeah.
Nope. You got to tell to a person. Tell who about?
Telling us. Tell us. Could
Good.
you tell us about the problems?
Good. And if you want to follow the pattern from earlier, could you start by...
Could you start by telling us about the problems?
Good. Could you start by telling us about the problems we've had? Back to Arnaud. I think we need to discuss... This was about getting more information. I don't know if you remember this part. This was not the chairman, I don't think. How did we ask about getting more information? Do you remember?
Not really.
Okay. Pass. Did anyone remember this? Anyone? Before I tell you? No?
As you can see, Brad, I think we need to discuss.
Okay, so this was about getting more information, or maybe to sort of move forward and delay that item until later. So we need to discuss this in more detail. We need to discuss this in more detail. In other words, we'll come back to it later. Number 6, Rob. Actually, I think we should blank the next point for now.
Move on to.
Move on to the next point. Keep the meeting moving forward. Giancarlo. Okay, let's blank what we've agreed. The last thing.
Okay, let's. Okay, let's what we have agreed. Let's discuss. Let's review. Let's go over.
Let's go over what we have agreed. Good. Let's go over. Let's review it. All right, great. Now let me give you a meeting for you to have. Let's take a look. Read the agenda below, and it says to role play the opening speech to the meeting using the phrase you've learned. Okay. Well, take a minute and let's compare openings. Make sure everything is clear in the text. So take a minute, read it, and then I'll ask one of you to actually open the meeting using this information. Maybe I'll ask a second one of you to give an alternative version if there's anything you'd like to add. Notice the date, the place, the participants. Notice the agenda. Okay?
Yes. What's the meaning of IT department? IT is...
IT, Information Technology, the computer department.
Okay, thank you. Technology. Information technology. Okay.
Okay. Any questions about the vocabulary in the agenda? No? Okay. Monsieur Arnaud?
Yes?
Would you like to open the meeting for us based on this agenda using all of the key phrases we've just gone over?
Okay, I'm going to try.
You try.
Right then. I think we should start. Now, as you all know, we are here to discuss the reducing cost in the IT department.
We are here to discuss how we could
reduce costs in the IT department. As you can see, there are 3 items on today's agenda. We only have this room.
We only have room for.
We will only have room for 1 hour.
Oh, we only have the room for 1 hour. Okay, got it. We only have the room for 1 hour, so.
Yeah. So let's try to stick to the agenda.
As far as possible.
Okay, as far as possible.
Okay, and then you're going to call in your first person. What would you say?
Yes. Beatrice, could you start by telling us about the running cost of IT department?
Okay, good. Or maybe the current running cost.
The current running cost.
That's it. Very good. In fact, that's unbelievable, Arno. That's too good.
Thank you.
Good. The only expression you didn't use, which you could have used, was as far as possible. Little things like that. Maybe that's not obvious. But in the part where you said, as you can see, there are 3 items on the agenda, and we're going to try to stick to these as far as possible. So you could say as far as possible. You could say as much as possible. Another one? Or something similar. Okay, very good. Unbelievably good. In fact, I can't even correct you because you didn't make any mistakes. I thought you would, but you didn't. I wanted the rest of you to try to give an alternative version. Well, let me just ask you, is there anything that you might do differently than what Arno did to open the meeting for the rest of you? Anything you would change or do differently? Anything we could add? Or, I mean, for me, I'm quite satisfied with it, but if there's any suggestions, let us know. Going once, going twice, sold to Arno. Okay. In the last class, 2 classes ago, we came up with a product. And the product was zipperware. Today is going to be our kickoff meeting for zipperware. We know nothing about zipperware because it's not real. We've just invented it. But it sounds great, and we're going to launch it. So this is our kickoff meeting. And what we need to do is decide what zipperware is. That's one we voted on. Not all of you were in that class, but we voted on it. We need to decide what it is. We need to create a quick agenda. We need to open the agenda, to discuss the agenda in the opening of the meeting. So if we're going to stick to zipperware, first of all, let's decide, let's use the agenda to just flesh out some quick details. Flesh out, to make these details real. Okay? So I'm going to ask some basic questions. What? If we're going to keep using the product, let's say, what is zipperware? Let's define it quickly. What is it? And since it doesn't exist, whatever you say is fine. What is zipperware? What are we going to define it as?
Okay,
Giancarlo, what would you say?
Yes, a zipperware is a practical utensil using for all the family.
Used by the whole family.
By all family to take their food warm and safe and clean.
Okay, to keep food out. Could it be? It could be hot or cold, I guess. So stored, hot, warm, or cold. Okay, so if you don't see the similarity between a product out there, the joke is that this is zipperware instead of Tupperware. Tupperware uses suction. This uses zippers. Practical kitchen supply used by the whole family to keep or cold, but great. I changed it to use by the whole, not all, but whole. Okay, by the whole family. Okay, great.
Used by the whole family to keep food stored warm and cold, but clean. Yes.
Okay. Let's decide what our purpose is for our kickoff meeting. Okay, V, do you think you could give us our purpose? We did what is zipperware. What is our purpose for this particular meeting, the kickoff meeting? V, what would you say for that? If it's a kickoff meeting, what's the reason we're meeting?
Because we are about to launch a new product in the household market.
Good. So you should state it just like you see on the screen. to reduce costs in the IT department. So our purpose is to
Our purpose is to launch a new product in household market.
in the household market.
In the household market.
Excellent. Let's see. The date and the place, well, that doesn't matter. We're here. The participants, we know. The agenda. What is our agenda for the meeting? Okay? I'm going to ask all of you to participate in this one. Rob, what should be the first item on our agenda? Let's imagine. You could use the agenda you see to help you,
Okay.
or you could use your own ideas based on launching a new product.
I think first item in agenda maybe could be material. Main material for create this box zipper.
Okay, so deciding on the right material
Yeah.
for the product. Very good. Makes sense. We could go with that. Give me a second and I'll put that in the chat window for you. Okay, very good. And the rest of you, if you can, I'd like you to add something to the agenda. Remember, this is the kickoff meeting to launch a new product. So think about the kinds of things you'd have to discuss at the kickoff meeting. Part of the purpose of a kickoff meeting is to have other meetings. This meeting is to get everyone on the same page so that the follow-up meetings are run really efficiently and the work is divided up. Okay? So, what do you think, Arnaud? What should be another item?
Price, cost,
Okay, it's Giancarlo. What was that?
price,
Uh-huh.
price of the product,
Mm-hmm.
presentation.
Let's state that as an action. So the first action was deciding on the right material, and the second action is, Giancarlo?
Maybe discuss the price of the product.
Discussing the right price of the product. Why say pricing?
Discussing the right pricing of the product. Of the product.
Sorry, no, it's a mistake. Should say product.
Of the product, yes. Of the product, yes.
Do you know why I say pricing and not price?
Because it's a noun. The right pricing.
Nope.
Discussing. Because we begin with discussing.
Because it's not a grammatical reason. Because pricing is a process that we're going to do. Therefore, I have to discuss it. I have to use a gerund to say that it's. If I say the price, I'm talking about an action that's completed in the past. Look at the price of that car. In the past, someone decided on the price. Uh-oh. If I say, what is the pricing, or let's decide the pricing, you and I together now are going to go through the thinking process needed. So pricing is a process. That's the difference in this case.
Oh, okay.
Okay? So it's not a grammatical reason. It's a semantic reason. Okay, Mr. Arnaud, what would you think should be our third item on the agenda?
I pass my.
You pass.
Yeah, that's my turn.
Ms. V, what do you think should be the third, possibly final item?
I'm not sure about the final item, but my point is we should discuss about the superior feature.
Superior meaning what? Most important?
Superior feature of this product.
Superior?
It's like competitive.
I don't understand. Superior what? picture, you
I
said?
mean the competitive feature of this product against
What
Feature, John. Features,
feature? Oh,
characteristics,
okay, I
yeah
couldn't
features.
hear. Discuss the competitive
yeah
feature
feature
or features. Okay,
features yeah competitive competitive or competitive
competitive, right? What makes this product special? How can it
yeah
carve out a niche in the market? Okay, and Rob, you had another idea?
Yes, I think we need to decide size for small, large, or medium.
Okay, we can. So we have discussing the material, the pricing, and the features. So that maybe could go under features. What do you think?
Hmm,
Because
maybe.
the size will be a feature too. So actually, I think we have a good agenda. We have 3 items on the agenda, and the fourth, your item, Rob, could be a sub item, a sub agenda item under discussing the competitive features. I think we're in pretty good shape. Well, who would like to open the meeting? Arnaud, you had a chance. You did a great job. I'd like someone else to try to open this meeting. And again, using the key phrases that we've learned, just like Arnaud did, I want you to see if you can give a quick overview and discuss the agenda. And then we can actually go on and try to have the meeting. We can try it briefly. Who feels adventurous?
Excuse me, John.
Hello? Giancarlo?
Oh, I am listening to the recording, but uh, there is a word talking about furniture that is ergonomics.
Ergonomics, right?
And can we say that this kind of supplies must have an ergonomic
Element.
characteristic,
Element.
ergonomic,
Ele-
ergonomic element?
Ergonomic element, ergonomic design. Yeah, absolutely. Sure. Ergonomic means that it fits your body in some way, basically.
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. So, Giancarlo, feel adventurous? Would you like to open the meeting for us using as many of the key phrases as you can recall?
Okay. Yes. Let me try. Next class, right?
Next class? Well, we are we. I
Because it says chapter 8 right now.
I know, but I couldn't. I started late, so I was going to give you the extra 10 minutes.
Okay, okay, okay.
Why don't you try it now? We'll take 2 minutes. We'll take 2 more minutes. If you got to go, you can go. But let's try it once. Okay? Remember the key phrases, starting from right then all the way up to calling on a person for the first item. Want to give
Okay.
it a try, Giancarlo?
Okay, yes. I'm gonna stick to the model here. Okay, right then, I think we should start. Now, as you all know, we are here to discuss the main characteristics and issues about our product, Zipperware. As you can see, there are 3 or 4 different items today in today's agenda, and we need to discuss them right now. So, can we start?
So we're going to try to stick to these. Remember that one?
Yes, number one, the first one is discussing the right pricing of the product. Number two is discussing the right pricing.
Let's change that. Instead of number 1, 2, and 3, why don't we say first, blah, 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 then, blah, 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 after that, blah, 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 and finally, blah, blah, blah. If there's any questions, we'll take them at the end or something like that. Use sequential connectors if you can. It sounds better. So
Okay,
first,
deciding on the right material for the product, then discussing the right pricing of the product. After that, we need to discuss the competitive features. And finally, if we can add something, we can talk about the ergonomics. And we start.
Excellent. Good. Sounds pretty good. I guess we should stop here. We're already 10 minutes late. Sounds pretty good. The only correction I would make, Giancarlo, is just at the end, or when you're discussing the order of the agenda, you might say we'll be starting. Notice I say will be, so future continuous, because the agenda is in the future. So we'll be starting by discussing the competitive features of the product, and then, etc. So just the future continuous is the only change I would make, okay?
Okay, yes.
All right. Okay, yes, I guess we better stop. We're a bit late. But hopefully it gives you an idea of how to start a presentation, how to lay out the structure, and maybe we can come back to it and actually launch our Zipperware product in the future. I don't know. We'll see. All right. Have a great day. I'll be back tomorrow for 2 hours from 12 to 2 GMT with fun with phrasals first, phrasal verbs, followed by part 2, the grammar from yesterday's class in speaking skills. We're going to be doing comparisons and talking about restaurant choices, using comparisons to decide where to go. Bye for now, everyone. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye, John. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye.